over the course of thousands of years, our ways of life have changed dramatically. And that is really something that we can be grateful for because things weren't always as cushiony as they are today. From human sacrifice to walking on fire to eating other individuals. Let's talk about these dark things and more only in today's video. Top 10 dark things that ancient tribes did. Starting off this countdown, we have the Vikings pillaged. If you know anything about the Vikings, then it's probably that they like to wear those pointy hats. I mean, I think that was the first thing that I ever learned about Vikings, and apparently it's not even true. Yeah, that was all a lie. They just wore normal hats. It's crazy how the world lies to you. But if that was the first thing that you learned about them, then the second thing would definitely be that they love to travel around and destroy everything. They would sail around on their big boats and be beating on a drum so that everyone could get into a solid rhythm. Then they would come up on your shore and just start hacking people to bits. The Vikings would come through and burn everything to the ground, hack your armies to pieces, steal all your goods, and then take off back into the ocean. If you were on the Viking end of this whole thing, it would seem like a pretty good deal. You just gotta hang around on a boat all day and then show up to a place you don't know, slaughter like a badass, get paid for it, and then take off back into the water. Minus the killing part, that's okay. And now, moving on to Olivia.
In our number 9 spot today, we have finger cutting. Before I dive into this one, guys, please don't forget to hit the thumbs up button if you're enjoying the video so far, because it really helps us out. The Dani tribe of Indonesia has a tradition that they have actually continued throughout the years, and although the Indonesian government has actually banned it, it is still believed to be practiced today. After a loved one passes away, everyone feels emotional pain, but women in this tribe will then turn their emotional pain into physical. It is a tradition for women to tie a string very tightly around their finger for 30 minutes in order to numb it, and then they will participate in the ritual of cutting off a segment of their finger. They will then burn or cauterize their new fingertip in order to stop the bleeding. This gruesome practice is done because this tribe believes that it helps keep the spirits of the deceased at peace, and for the restless spirits, it keeps them away. This practice is also said to be helpful in allowing physical pain to help the process of the emotional pain.
Coming in at number 8, we have they fought naked. I guess back in the day, ancient tribes didn't care if they were exposed while fighting. I personally would be scared, that things would get lopped off, but that's just me. This was something that was practiced by both the Vikings and the Gauls. So the Vikings, they would go around pillaging and also fight naked, and then the Gauls, they were the people to sack Rome for an 800-year period. So these guys were ruthless killing machines. And also pretty brave if they had all that on display.
In our number 7 spot today, we have firewalking. Have you ever run a bath that's too hot and then when you go to try and step in it, your feet are way too cold and it absolutely burns? This tradition is kind of like that, except way worse and a lot more painful. This is one tradition that has been seen in many tribes throughout history and is sometimes even still practiced today. Firewalking is basically exactly what it sounds like. Whoever is participating in the ritual will walk over either a bed of embers or stones that have been set on fire, which obviously makes them extremely hot. Since this is a practice throughout a few different tribes and cultures, there isn't one concrete reason for this, but the main reasons either consist of it being a gesture of respect towards their god, but it can also be a ritual that helps ward off evil spirits, or it can be done as a way to purify their soul.
In our 6th spot, we have they left behind the weak. If you were a baby that was being born back in ancient Greece, you better hope that you come out perfect. You better hope that when the doctor takes a look at you right after you come out, screaming and crying, you better hope that you got all your fingers and toes, because they wouldn't think twice about keeping you around. If anything was off, then they would just leave you out in a forest. Some animal might turn you into a snack. But it was thought that commoners would scour the woods to find these kids to then take home. Not only that, but as soon as you were 7 years old, you would be taken into an intense environment of training, taken away from your family and forced to live with all other men who were becoming Spartans. If anyone showed any fear or weakness, the leaders training the men would get everyone else to gang up on them and encourage fighting. You had to be hardened at all times because back then the world was a much scarier place. Like imagine coming out and I'm not even gonna go there. Basically any sign of weakness and you were fought or they got rid of you.
In our number 5 spot today, we have scarification. In Papua New Guinea, there is a tribe called Kondengara, and this ritual is performed in order to strengthen the spiritual connection between the person and their environment. This ritual normally only involves men, and it starts off with adolescent men being isolated in what is called the spirit house for 2 months. After this period of isolation is over, they will then begin to prepare for their initiation ceremony. An expert will take sharp pieces of bamboo and cut their backs, which is based on the pattern of the skin of a crocodile. This is so that when the cuts heal, the scarring will be in this pattern because it is believed that crocodiles are the creators of humans. Since this is the ceremony that acts as the transition for young men to enter adulthood, this scarring is supposed to symbolize the tooth marks that were left by the spirit of the crocodile, which ate the body of the young boy and spit him out as a grown man.
And at number 4, they had warrior kings. Rolling off my last point of how much these people love to fight, they would see that knowledge of combat is one of the best traits to lead people. That's where the Hatti come in. They were one of the most dominant forces in the Bronze Age. They would cut down anyone who got in their way, and they would take no crap from anyone. They had one of the largest empires of their time, and this was because of their love for violence and their respect for someone who knew how to fight. They would pick their king by someone who would be a great general, but also was successful in single combat. There would be many times when the king would fight with the army, which is pretty good. Even if you don't agree with all the bloodshed, at least those kings were willing to die for the cause. Because of this mentality towards warfare, this meant that everyone would start training on how to be the best warrior. They would start this training at an early age with aspirations to be king. So even if someone didn't get to be king, they would still be deadly with a blade. And that is how they were able to have such a strong army.
In our number 3 spot today, we have bullet ant gloves. In Brazil, there is a tribe, and they have one initiation tradition that I just truly cannot believe. Have you guys ever heard of bullet ants? If you haven't, they're obviously ants, but these ants are known for their incredibly powerful and painful venomous sting. The name bullet ant comes from the fact that these stings apparently have an equal amount of pain to that of being shot, so certainly an ant to stay away from. Anyway, this tribe has special gloves that are made with hundreds of bullet ants woven into it. The ritual consists of the person putting their hands inside of these gloves and leaving them there for 10 whole minutes. By the time their hands come out, they truly cannot move their hands, and it takes days for the pain to entirely go away. Doing this one time should be enough to show everyone how serious you are, right? Well, apparently not, because this tradition is repeated by the same person over 20 separate times over the course of months or years. I feel like I wouldn't even be able to do this once, but you definitely would not catch me doing this multiple times.
Coming in at number 2, we have the Cannibals. Now, this wasn't all the tribes back in the day, but there were a few people that practiced
becoming dinner.
Archaeologists were able to discover this by finding caves where ancient humans were living. That's where they found remains that had bite marks through them. They believed that these were the remains of humans that were subjected to
becoming dinner.
And if food sources were scarce back then, you know they were eating each other.
In our number 1 spot today, we have human sacrifice. It may seem a little backwards, but human sacrifice was practiced by the Aztecs for many years as a means of survival. In Aztec mythology, Huitzilopochtli is the god of the sun, and he is constantly in a battle against darkness. If he loses, the world will of course end, and the idea behind the human sacrifice is that they will sacrifice their hearts in blood in order to feed him so that he can continue to fight the battle for light. It was also believed that if you sacrificed yourself in this way, it was not only a huge honor, but you would also have a very blessed afterlife. You would go on to fight in the army of Huitzilopochtli and help him win the battle against darkness. Alright guys, that has been our list for today. Thank you so much for checking it out. I've been your host, Olivia Kozlowski.
Let me know which one of these facts creeped you out the most in the comments below. With that being said, I've been your host, Lindsay Ivan, and I'll see you when I see ya.
And we'll see you next time. Bye!
Bye.